Good afternoon and welcome on a Friday afternoon in March as we have a bunch of new movies for a new release Friday. Happy to be here. My name is JW Colwell, movie guy. And here comes the motherfucking bride is what we're going to talk about first. But it's new release Friday, so you got a lot of movies out there right now. Scream 7, of course, opened pretty big last weekend. A lot of things going on this weekend. You got a lot of movies that cover a lot of bases for a lot of different audiences, which is good. As we progress through get done with the winter movies and get into the spring and summer movies, always good to have a bunch of things opening and a bunch of new movies out there. Okay. Comments. Good afternoon, friends. It's just me today, Ken, but thank you, friends. Yeah, it's close. Thanks for joining us. If you end up liking this review, or if you like a piece of this review, please like and subscribe on the Indie Escape Network, TikTok, IMDb, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, all those places where you can find our shows. We have a series of shows that you can watch every week. They include Loud and Nerdy on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. with me, myself, Jerry Kimura, Raven Hanshaw a few times a week. And every once in a while, we get Joe Ridgely, the producer of the Indie Escape Network. Then on Mondays, we do a movie called Generation Movie. It's more of our movie history show, where we look at classic releases and what their place is in the past and also what their place is in the future. So that's another great place. This Monday night, we'll be doing Going My Way, which is part of our Oscar decade celebration. And basically, we're going to be looking at Going My Way as one of the 3 Best Picture winners in the history of the Oscars that are not as well received as movies they might have been nominated against, but one nonetheless. So Going My Way with Bing Crosby is this week. A pretty big classic film, but has it held up and stood the test of time like the movies it was nominated against? I don't know. We'll talk about it on Monday. And then we also have a show on Thursday, every bi-weekly, that's every couple weeks on Thursdays, with Ryan West, and Joe Ridgely. And their show is really fun on Thursday nights. So with that in mind, let's begin. And let's talk about this movie here, The Bride. The Bride is a new release this week. It's from Maggie Gyllenhaal. And basically, she's a very talented actress that is now dipping her toes in the directing pool. She's made a couple movies where she's been very talented. She did The Lost Daughter. She is a really talented actress, but she's becoming a very talented female director in her own right. And this movie has a huge budget, $80-90 million. And it's been pushed back a couple times. So let's get that out of the way first. The thing about The Bride that makes it special is its energy. It is ambitious and big and loud and different from any of the other Bride of Frankenstein movies we've gotten. It is, I don't want to say it's a bold feminist take on a character that is never spoken on in film, because The Bride has never really spoken. She only screams once by Elsa Lanchester in the classic Universal version. But this is a bold reimagining, and not all of the boldness works. A lot of it does, though. It has, a really good cast. You have Christian Bale as Frankenstein, and you have Jessie Buckley, who's probably going to win an Oscar in a couple weeks for Hamnet as the bride. And what really works is this take on the bride character, and what really works is take on the Frankie character. Frank is really interesting in Christian Bale's hands, not necessarily because of what Bale does with the character, although he's very kind of charming and oafish and lovelorn, and also sad and lonely and miserable. But one of the things they do, Maggie Gyllenhaal has made this movie into a celebration of cinema. So it's not just a celebration of the Universal horror movies. It's a celebration of road movies, like the Bob Hope and Bing Crosby travel pictures. It's a celebration of Bonnie and Clyde, the classic Warner Brothers film from the 60s with, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway. It's a classic meshing of all those things. Now, not all that meshing works, right? But what does work, the performances from Buckley and Bale are particularly strong. Buckley, especially, she plays like a gun moll from the Chicago Mafia who basically at some point gets possessed by the spirit of Mary Shelley. That's one of the things that's a little bit touchy we'll talk about. But she gets possessed and she starts spouting off about the crime boss. So the crime boss has her killed. And basically the crime boss has systematically killed all of these girls that have been sent by a cop to infiltrate his structure by, getting in line with his men. But he's systematically killed a lot of them. And so Buckley plays Ida, this girl that basically is stuck in this position. She gets murdered. And Frankenstein travels all the way from Bavaria, so it's only in that area, right, where, it's never really quite ordained in the classic Universal movies, but it is the original Frankenstein's monster coming to 1930 Chicago. And he runs into another doctor who's working on reinvigoration, is what they use in the movie. And his basic tenet is that I am lonely. Not only do I need a mate for sexual purposes, but I need a mate because I'm lonely. I just need somebody to talk to. I need somebody who's like me. So his story about being like me and being different and being ostracized, pertinent in today's world. And so what they give Frank in this movie, Bale, and what Maggie Gyllenhaal has done is Gyllenhaal clearly has a love for 1930s musicals, musical comedies, musical reviews that were made for movie theaters where people went and just enjoyed, a life that they didn't have in Depression era America. And so basically what happens in a movie within a movie is that Christian Bale's Frank falls for a big character on the screen who's this guy that does musical comedies, romantic movies. And that's played by Jake Gyllenhaal, so Maggie Gyllenhaal's little brother. And it is really interesting. She's not good at framing big musical sequences, but she is good at getting the gist of what 1930s movie musicals were like, which is super interesting. And so Frank is obsessed with them. And, clearly he's gotten a version of love from movie musicals that he's not getting in his real life. So he asks Dr. Euphronius, who's played by Ned Benning, in kind of a small but very well done role to create a mate for him. And they find Ida in a pauper's grave, and basically they bring her back to life. And then the rest of the movie is kind of this really kind of electric, super ambitious idea that, Ida doesn't know who she is. She can't remember. Frank is basically giving her memories and saying, we were destined for love. And they go on the road, and then they become a couple on the run. They basically, they get into some trouble, and there's some murder involved, and they basically become, sightings in newspapers, like 1930s newspapers. And where are they now? Are they in Chicago? Are they in New York? And so it becomes a road picture that is propulsed by Buckley and Bale's chemistry. And it's not super great chemistry, but it's good enough. They have like this wonky chemistry that's based on them both being monsters and not nearly understanding what's going on. The makeup is great. The look is great. It looks like all the 1930s movie musicals within the movie look great. Music's kind of challenging and fun. Where there are things that don't work. There is an entire subplot about the ghost of Mary Shelley trapped inside of Ida's body. So Ida kind of has tics that resemble like just where she's resembles bipolar personality, where she goes from one thing to the other. And I don't know that works quite as well as they want it to. And eventually it kind of just fizzles out in the second half of the movie, and you're left with Ida realizing who she's become and being chased down by the cop that put her in the mob family to get information on a slimy crime boss. And and then they're on a run, and it's a celebration of cinema, but I can understand where people might stop off on it, because it doesn't all coalesce, but most of it does. And Buckley and Bale are so good. And Gyllenhaal's direction, even if it's not a perfect direction of a horror film or a comedy or a dark comedy or a road picture or whatever, because she's so ambitious and because she's taken a big swing and because it is everything you would hope for, it's a kind of budget that female directors rarely get a chance to use. All the money's on the screen. It looks great. The costume design is great. The makeup is fantastic. Bale's Frankenstein makeup is really good. And so all of it is there. It doesn't all coalesce, but it's so goddamn ambitious, and it's so worthy of, it's so clear that Maggie Gyllenhaal is a movie fan, that she likes the classic Universal horror films, that she likes classic 1930s movie musicals that have a specific kind of, beginning, middle, and end, and just kind of whatever. Now, she doesn't necessarily know how to film all those things, but this is her first big break with a very big budget, and I want to reward ambition. I want her to be rewarded for her ambition. And, whether you want to view it as like a woke kind of Frankenstein, I hate the word woke. I can't stand it. You're going to hear that it's a feminist revisionist take, and it is. But why wouldn't we in 2026 have a revisionist take on a character that's been around for almost 90 years? And Gyllenhaal is the perfect actor director to be able to take this material. Buckley is game. Buckley is so good in this role of this conflicted, sad kind of woman who's been left for naught in a mafia organization that gets murdered and then gets taken on the lam by Frankenstein's monster. And it's fun, and it's dark, and you got laughs, and it's well done. It is incredibly well done, but it's not a total, not all the pieces sync up, and that's okay. It's ambitious. It's trying hard. It's trying to do something you've never seen before. It's trying to create a Frankenstein's monster movie that we've never seen, and it does take a feminine view of the story and of the characters and of Mary Shelley herself and all of those things, and it wraps it up, and it has a distinct love affair with movies, which made it very appealing to me. Because if you're a filmmaker and you love movies and you understand how those movies work, and you're ambitious enough to incorporate them into your Frankenstein's monster, who likes 1930s romantic comedy musicals, and you're shooting them in black and white, and you have everything, it's so invigorating. As The Bride is reinvigorated, I was reinvigorated watching it, and I just think it's one of those movies that even if it misses on a few of the things, it misses on a few of its plot points or a few of its ambitious tries, it's still worth 1,000 of those tries just to get this kind of version of The Bride of Frankenstein out there. And The Bride, when the poster says, "Here comes the motherfucking bride," here comes the motherfucking bride. It is really ambitious, a lot of fun, with great performances from Buckley and Bale. And Maggie Gyllenhaal has not hit it out of the park, but she's trying really hard to do something that people haven't seen before. And I am a big believer in ambition and working hard and doing things that you love. You clearly love movies, and you're doing something ambitious. You're stepping behind your comfort zone, and you're jumping forth. Works as a horror film because all the weird, wonky stuff that's going on. Works as a scary sci-fi movie in the sense that, you know, all the different things that are the reinvigoration. It kind of works as a cop, you know, on the lam from the cops, Bonnie and Clyde type movie as well. The movies within a movie by Jake Gyllenhaal work well. There are a couple things, like the main thing I didn't really like. They do an overarching thing where Mary Shelley is trapped in purgatory and she's looking for a way out. And the way out is into Ida's body, and it creates like a bipolar disorder for Ida, where sometimes she's the bride and sometimes she's Mary Shelley. Buckley makes a clear distinction on which is which, but I don't know that it works. And as the movie plays out longer and longer, it gets farther and farther away from that. And I was much happier in that place where Buckley and Bale are playing off each other and figuring out what makes their monsters tick. It's highly ambitious, well worth your time, and demands to be seen on a big screen because it's lavish. It's got a good score. It's not perfect, but it is a really interesting take on the source material by Maggie Gyllenhaal. She wrote and directed it. It's got music by Hildur Guðmundsdóttir, and she is. It's got a vibe to it. It's got an energy and a vibe and just a real kind of ambition to it that is like catnip for people who watch a lot of movies. And I think as it progresses out, if it doesn't hit immediately, it will eventually become a cult film because it's got a lot of good things going on inside of it. It's just not perfect. It's got rough edges, and I appreciate the rough edges, and I appreciate the ambition. Maggie Gyllenhaal has made one that is it's just a great wild ride that you should get on board and see it in theaters where it's meant to be seen, and then realize that you're on the cusp of being the first wave in what will inevitably become a cult film for a lot of people. And don't worry about it being a revisionist female take on the character, because Frankenstein was written by a female to begin with. So I enjoyed it. It's not perfect. It's well done. Gyllenhaal, Bale, and Buckley deliver in what is a wildly ambitious horror comedy musical on the lam movie with 1930s movie musicals all throughout it. It really needs to be seen, and then you can come back and say you have problems with it, but for the most part, it's so ambitious that you're just like, you want all of it to work, and all of it doesn't, but that's okay. The Bride is playing now, and like I said, it's everything. Like, there are going to be costumes for this next Halloween. It's going to become a cult film, and Gyllenhaal here, seen here at the premiere, again, one of our best female directors working right now, and her first step into a big pond with a big budget is ambitious, and everything's on the screen, and that's all I could ask for in a movie. And Buckley is fantastic. Buckley is just great, and Bale's take on the character is really good too, but Buckley is the star here. She's got a lot to do. Okay, that was The Bride. And like I said, it's well worth your time, well worth your ambition. And to go see it in the theater. Let's get a comment and see what. Good afternoon, Joe Ridgely. Just doing New Release Friday. Thank you for joining me. The Bride is fun stuff, not perfect, but also incredibly well done, fun, and interesting. At least interesting. That's the most we can ask for movies in March. We're not going to get the best and the brightest like we do October through December Oscar movies, or we're not going to get the biggest summer blockbusters like we do in June through August. We could ask for interesting takes on great material, and The Bride is a lot of fun. Okay. Other movie opening this week is for the kids. It's called Hoppers, and it's Pixar's latest new movie. And I saw it last Saturday. I did a review on Tuesday night, but I wanted to do a full review today because it deserves a full-bodied review, because it's just this weird, wonderfully wacky, emotional, the kind of movie you expect from Pixar, right? With characters and interesting things going on, and weird and fun. And right here, you'll see Mabel, who is the beaver on the left without a crown. You will see the king of the mammals, which is King George. He is a beaver monarch. He's the king of the mammals. And he is played by Bobby Moynihan, who is fantastic as King George. He's my favorite character in the movie. And basically, this follows a girl named Mabel, who discovers that the scientists at her local university have developed Hopper technology, which allows them to put their minds into robot versions of animals, a la Avatar, although they scream at one point, do not call it Avatar, where they're able to put this, as the lady is putting over her head, into this into this. So it's interesting. Mabel comes from a family where her grandmother has cared for a local kind of like marsh kind of piece of land, where she is connected with Mabel because Mabel was as a troubled youth, always getting in trouble in school, and she eventually goes to live with her grandmother, and her grandmother takes her out and sits on a rock and says, just become part of nature, touch grass, be a part of nature. And once you realize you're part of something bigger, everything falls away, and you can become better at being a person or being somebody that's part of something. And, in true Pixar fashion, her grandmother passes away. The area where she has grown up and where she has seen all these animals and where she has, communed with nature, is being replaced by a huge highway by the local mayor, who's kind of a thorn in Mabel's side, Jerry Generazzo. He's a greedy mayor, played by John Hamm, and basically he is going to get rid of the marshland, to replace it with a superhighway for the local city. And Mabel is trying to stop that. So she goes door to door, she does petitions, she does all kinds of stuff, and eventually she comes to the idea that she finds her science professor at her local college who has the Hopper technology. So Mabel jumps into a beaver. And then she sets forth to try to get the marshland back full of animals. The animals have moved out because the trucks are moving in and everything else. And Mabel realizes that if she can get the animals moved back, then it will be declared a safe zone, environmentally speaking, and they won't be able to build the highway. And so chaos ensues because Mabel instead incites a rise up from the animal kingdom against humans. Said it was weird. But it's so funny, and it has so much going on, and it's so smart and so intelligent and so well done. It is the best original Pixar movie in years. Mabel is a scrappy protagonist that you're rooting for, that you want her to help the animals. King George, played by Bobby Moynihan, is a fantastic beaver overlord. And basically, we find out that all the animals live in kind of a giant nest that King George has made for all the animals that are moving in from other places. as humans encroach upon their land. And Mabel, gets the animal kingdom to kind of rise up with all the other animal kingdom overlords coming, the insect overlord, the snake overlord, reptile overlord, the fish overlord, frog overlord, like amphibians, like everybody comes. And what ensues is that they're going to kill Jerry, the mayor, and it's chaotic, it's funny, it's loud, it moves, it holds child's attention, and the jokes for the adults are just as good as all the great Pixar's. And I really believe that this movie will go down as one of the great Pixar movies when we're talking about things. It's fresh. It reminds me of like the first time you saw WALL-E, where the basic story is not nearly as important as the underlying themes. WALL-E watching the Hello Dolly. Mabel wants to save the glade because Mabel is in love with the glade because it ties to her grandmother. And she then, with the hopper technology, gets a family and builds a family with King George and all the other animals. And it's got a lot of funny stuff. It's got pond rules, which are great. It's got so many things that are going for it. It moves fast. It's just wacky. Like it's a cartoon with a lot of energy, and it's buoyant and moves fast. It's just so good. And I can't again stress any more clearly, it's one of the best movies of the year thus far. And I think you're gonna have a real tough time beating it next year for best animated movie, although we're getting some things the rest of the year that are certainly going to challenge it. But it's just so different from anything you've seen, coupled with really smart jokes, coupled with just this chaotic cartoon energy that is not present in a lot of movies, but it really kind of reminds me of the old Looney Tunes cartoons, where it's got this energy where it's just, it's just an ebullient energy that just, breaks free. And you notice you're sitting in the theater and the kids are laughing, the adults are laughing. They may not be laughing at the same things, but they're both laughing at simultaneously. And movies that do that end up standing the test of time, where you get to the point where it's whatever. And like I said, it's all very charming. Mabel, kind of not telling King George that she's a robot, she's a human in a robot body. And the scientists working to try to get Mabel out. And then also everything happening where the animal kingdom decides to revolt on humans, which is, it kind of is like in a world where the Birds, Alfred Hitchcock's The Birds happens, the 1970s Kingdom of the Spider movie happened, any, snake movies that you've seen where there's like a bunch of snakes, certainly like arachnophobia, all of those things kind of play in. So it has all those things going for it. Plus it has this ebullient energy and this emotional, depth that you don't get in a ton of kids' movies, but emotional depth where Mabel is tied to her grandmother, who's tied to this place, and she can't give it up. She can't let it go. Even though her grandmother says you can find communion in places anywhere, and she just can't give it up. And then she finds it with the animals, and the animals look at her as a savior, as a martyr, as the next big leader, and she realizes, I can't be that leader because I'm not actually an animal. But like it's very funny. It's really well done. It's the best Pixar movie in years. And hoppers, if you have kids this weekend, you owe it to yourself and them to get them into this movie so that you can, as a family, enjoy it. Because Pixar has crafted this wacky energy, funny, unique, even though it's, people will say Avatar, a unique, fun, imaginative, well done animated movie. And it's a really good week for imagination in cinema and reverence. And Hoppers is, I think going to dominate the box office next few weeks, at least until Mario Galaxy gets out in April. Hoppers is great, though. The Bride is great as well, just not perfect, but different and unique and special. Sorry about that. Just a little bit of check on time. But like I said, you can't go wrong if you have kids. Take them to see Hoppers this weekend. If you want some challenging stuff and you are a fan of any of the things we talk about, movie musicals, horror films, the Universal monster movies, Bonnie and Clyde. If you're a fan of Bonnie and Clyde, if you're a fan of 1930s movie musicals, I know it doesn't look that way, but when you get there, you'll understand. The Bride with Jessie Buckley and Christian Bale, directed by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Really, really ambitious, fun, dark, wonderful ride. And, if you have kids, Hoppers you cannot go wrong with Hoppers. It is fantastic and emotional and really well done. Well, like I said, New Release Friday is our new thing we do every week on Friday. I try to do 3 o'clock, 5 o'clock, or 8 o'clock are the 3 times, but we're doing it at 5 o'clock today. Thank you for joining me on New Release Friday on Generation Movie. Everybody have a good week. Go see a movie, and we'll see everybody for Going My Way on Monday night with me and Rich. Finishing our Oscar Decade Cavalcade right before the Academy Awards. Also see you on Tuesday night for Loud and Nerdy with me and Jerry, maybe Raven, maybe Joe. Thank you for joining us tonight. If you like our show, like and subscribe on all those places: TikTok, IMDb, YouTube, Facebook, Threads, Blue Sky, Twitter, or whatever the crazy person's calling it this week. Have a great day. Go see some movies. And I'll see everybody in the theater. Bye.